For USCFootball.com, I'm Keely Eure here with Dan Weber for instant analysis of USC's 14th practice of spring camp. It's the second to last or penultimate practice for the Trojans. I want to start off with a certain player, though, the player of the day, maybe, of today's practice, Michael Pittman. Dan described his day as an All-American type practice. Dan, do you want to get into Michael's performance today?
I just think he has probably figured out this offense better than anybody. And I think the other thing he's figured out is, man, I'm going to get a lot of matchups that are really to my advantage. You know, I'm bigger than, almost anybody that covers me. You know, I'm faster than half of the guys that are covering me when I'm running these, shallow crossing routes and what have you. And he got open every way you could get open. He caught everything. He caught, touchdown passes and, fades at the end of the end zone. He caught a short dump off ball inside the 5, pivoted, reverse pivoted and, dove into the end zone. But he just kept catch after catch after catch. And you keep thinking, okay, that's what this offense is supposed to look like. That's how it works. If you can get guys, as they say, who can find the open grass and get to it, we'll get them the ball. I think we saw just an example of that today. He just got open again and again and again with all kinds of little quick moves, and maybe the other 4 guys or 3 guys, whatever, are covered, but you got one guy, open quick, and you go to him. You just think, and all the quarterbacks, I thought I had a good day. I think the recognition level for the quarterbacks as to what's there, what's available, is, the wide receivers, for example, we had a case where Devin Williams immediately, he got off the line of scrimmage. He was open immediately. I don't know if it was a busted coverage or what it was. And JT was in, and he just immediately threw the ball. And I think Devin didn't realize, if I get open that quick, I'm going to get the ball that quick. And just didn't quite. And then for the rest of the practice, I think he realized, if you're releasing off the line of scrimmage and somehow there's a mismatch or miscalculation by the defense, I better get ready or that ball's going to hit me in the back of the helmet. Yeah. And that's what you're seeing more of that. Yeah. Everybody looks like, okay, that's how this is supposed to work. But I thought with Michael today, it was like, oh, that's just, show the cut-ups on Michael today. And this is how the offense is supposed to work.
Yeah, and as far as the quarterbacks go, I think the difference from day 14 to day 1 is the quarterbacks are just getting the ball out of their hands so much quicker than what we're seeing. And that's something that on Tuesday, Graham Harrell really says he emphasizes for the quarterbacks. But overall, I thought it was a competitive day. The portion of practices that keep catching my eye are those competitive short red zone periods. Today, it looked like the defense won 4 out of 6 of those plays, but it just seems like the players and coaches alike just have so much fun not only being that competitive but just going against each other in such a difficult way, but a rewarding way.
And then I think when they came down this end and they go from the 3-yard line, which they do even though they're not in full pads, then I think you went back to maybe the offense having an advantage. And I do like that back and forth competitiveness where they don't just do it once, or they don't just do it with 1 or 2 quarterbacks. They do it with everybody. And Clancy Pendergast talked about how valuable that is for the defense. It's just that repetition, going against it, repetition gives him a chance to get all his guys on the field, and they're seeing things. And he said, what's interesting is the run concepts in this offense are very much like what they're going to see. So they're getting to see a much more realistic look at what most of their the USC opponents are gonna run, both throwing the ball and passing it, catching it, and running it. Except the difference is with USC, they're doing it faster, and they're doing it without having to think about it and call plays that you have to just everybody executes perfectly. You got to have you got guys that are just trying to get open, they're trying to go where the defense isn't, and so that puts a real it's a challenge for the defense. Every play you've got somebody just and they're to the point now where the offense almost likes it that the defense kind of thinks they know what's going to happen or how each play is going to develop, because the challenge then is to just run it better, run it faster, run it more perfectly. And the competitive level this year compared to a year ago, it's not even on the same planet. I mean, it's just they really compete on every play, and the way they did things last year, you couldn't see that. This year, you can't miss it.
Yeah, it also doesn't seem like a forced competitiveness. Sometimes when guys are like, oh, let's do this, and then it kind of fizzles out. No, it seems like they're genuinely having fun playing at that competitive level. But a guy that we haven't necessarily heard a lot from so far this spring is Joe Deforest, and now he is the outside linebackers coach for USC. You got to talk to him today, but how do you see that position evolving so far this spring?
I don't think we really know. I think we have a really good idea. I mean, Joe was talking about how they like it the way they've divided up the Mike linebackers from the Will linebackers, and we have a good idea. They go with Johnny Nansen and Michael Hutchings really work with the Mike guys, and you have a kind of four of them. You have a kind of a sense of you got John Houston and Iosefa. Those are in charge. Those guys are in charge, and so you got a sense of this is how we do it. This is what we're going to do with you. But with the other guys, it's like they're doing different things. It's like we got guys who do different things. I mean, Joe was talking about we have different kinds of athletes that we're going to play differently. So when they're out there in different situations, we're going to do different things. So we haven't really, figured out exactly how they're going to do all the things they're going to do on the outside. But, it's going to be an interesting mix because you've got, the defensive ends who are all different with, the Connor Murphy and Christian Rector and Drake Jackson. Yeah. I mean, it's just interesting. The way they play the edge this year is going to be real interesting. Mm-hmm. But I don't think we have a real feel for that yet.
Yeah. And speaking of Drake Jackson, we actually got to talk to him and Ben Griffiths today. So we got two early enrollees. While it's an age difference that's definitely different from almost high schooler Drake Jackson and 27-year-old Ben Griffiths. What did you take away from both of those guys?
I thought it was interesting. I asked Drake, I said, there's been some question about how big were you when you came in here, how big are you now? And he said, well, he weighed 265 when he came in January. Now he's 275. So that's kind of what you thought. And he said, I was 6'3", I'm 6'4" now. And everybody go, what? You're 6'4"? He said, yeah. Oh, okay. So we probably didn't expect him to say, the 10 pounds we were looking for, that was kind of the idea we were thinking. But the extra inch, he said, yeah, I'm 6'4" now. I don't know. Yeah. He's a kind of, kid. He's talking about how much he had to learn, especially on the pass rush. He said in high school, you can do this, and you didn't want to denigrate high school kids, but he said, you get to college, and he said, you do one thing, and, that's just not anywhere near good enough. And he said, so he's really had to work on his pass rush techniques and how he uses his hands and his arms and all that. But he said, that's, you learn right away that the offensive linemen are a whole lot different, a whole lot more, able to execute all kinds of techniques, and you better be able to do some things. So he said he's completely changed his pass rush, and that's just seems like having a lot of fun. You just get the sense that he's just a kid that really enjoys what he's doing and happy to be here.
Mm-hmm. As far as Ben Griffiths go, he's such an interesting combo of unique factors. He's 27 years old. He said that he felt especially old today because Keaton Slovis just turned 18, so there's a 10-year difference between both of them. He said he's getting used to verbiage like yard line, since we're the metric in Australia, and we're what are we over here? We're weird.
That's a really good question.
I know what it is. I'm forgetting it right now.
We never talk about it because we are it.
Yeah.
And we don't have to define it. We talk about the metric system, but we don't have to define what we are.
Imperial. We're imperial. That's.
So, and nobody even ever says that or thinks it.
Yeah. So he's having a little bit of a culture shock, a culture change, but it's interesting because he's had a whole professional career before even coming to college, which most guys are coming from high school and just getting a taste of the college level. So his mindset is definitely at a different place than the average college player.
Yeah. I mean, and, he talked about the fact that he's also the holder. Yeah. And they work on that in the kicking academies over there because it makes sense because those guys are always together and you're probably not ever going to be punting and place kicking at the same time. And so the punter, other than the quarterback, handles the ball more than anybody. So he is the logical guy to be your holder. Now the fact that he's 6'6" or whatever, and has only seen 3 American football games in his life, but that's pretty good. I was surprised. He's seen 2 NFL games and a USC game when he came for his visit, but he's interesting because we look at him and we watch him kick the ball and we think, man, he's got a whole lot of different punts. And he said he's really only got the one, and then like today he said, well, I do have that drop ball that I kick, where he kicks it 50, 55 yards with the backwards, end over end spin, so that if he can kick it inside the 15 or whatever, it won't go into the end zone. And then he's got the one that he calls it a spiral. I don't know that it's exactly a spiral. I mean, it's got a forward turn, but it's more like a half end over end moving, the other direction. But he's kicks the heck out of it. I mean, he's just such a natural. I mean, that's so big a part of the game with Aussie rule football today. Basically, he was kicking them, in the left corner, the right corner. He was dropping them inside the 5. And, like 50-yard punts where he was just dropping it short. And he's going to be a weapon. Yeah. I don't think there's just any question about it. He's something USC hasn't had, since Tom Malone in 2003. But he's a lot of fun. The idea he talked about, there's sort of a brotherhood of Australian kickers now in the U.S. that they do chat groups, and I guess he's, by definition, is 27 years old. He's kind of the father figure. I mean, those kids would all realize he's had a complete professional football career, which he's retired from now. So, I mean, those kids get drafted right out of high school, so they don't ever get to go to college. Yeah. So I think he always had a goal. And I guess Baxter has been kind of involved with him for 3 years. So it was a matter of when USC had the scholarships available and when he was going to, hang up his cleats in Australia. And it all worked out, timing-wise. And he's going to be a psychology major, which I think. And he very definitely would like to play at the next level. Yeah. And I think he's going to get a chance. And that's another place where being a holder will really help him if he can do, hold and punt. Yeah. And those guys are going, till they're 40 now. So it looks like a pretty good plan, for Ben Griffiths. But I think people are going to have fun watching him.
Mm-hmm. As far as injuries go, the only real thing to report from today was Andrew Voorhees came out maybe towards the first quarter of the practice. It looked like it was a back injury, which may be concerning going forward just because it has been an injury that's plagued Andrew Voorhees sometimes. We didn't get an official update because we will only get to talk to Clay Helton on Saturday. But as I mentioned, today was shoulder pads and shorts, which means USC's final practice will be full pads. Now, Dan, you will be at a wedding, so this is our last incident analysis with Dan. I'll be doing incident with Gerard Martinez on Saturday, which is interesting. Yes. But Dan, so what do you think? Are you expecting for Saturday? Is it going to be a scrimmage? What do you think?
I don't think so. I think they've actually used up their 3. They're allowed 3, and I think the last 3 Saturdays counted. I mean, I don't know that we know all the absolute details in terms of what counts as a scrimmage or what doesn't. I'm glad they haven't really designated any of them as scrimmages as such, but I do know that if Gerard's coming, they better scrimmage because Gerard likes his scrimmages. I don't know what they're allowed to do. Today it was interesting. They did talk about getting them ready for what they need to do in the summer. And Coach Pendergrass talked about, for example, with the defense, they designated John Houston and Jordan Iosefa as the defensive coordinators for the summer. And so they put them through the early paces in practice today. They were in charge because they want them to be able to say, this is what we're doing in the summer. So those two are responsible. So we had thought that one of the last couple of days they would go over what they expect them to do in the summer. I don't know. I know in the past we have seen them in the last practice actually go over, this is what we want you to do in the summer. This is how we want you to do it.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I don't know if they'll, scrimmage more, 11 on 11 more, or if they'll go looking toward the summer more. I think that, kind of an interesting, thing to look forward to for Saturday, because I don't think we know. And since we don't have access to Clay, I don't have to answer that question. So stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned indeed. And since, as I mentioned, you will not be here on Saturday, I'm going to go a little big picture just because this is the last time we'll get to talk to you. What did you take away from USC's 2019 spring? What did you like? What did you didn't like about this whole process?
I mean, I pretty much liked it. I thought this was a good spring. I mean, we had a good chance to compare it against last year when we really would have wished they would have called it off after about 5 practices because they weren't getting anything done. This is one of those ones where they look like they get better every day. They do so many reps. They do them fast. Today would have been a good example with just shoulder pads and helmets that maybe, and shorts that maybe they don't go at it so hard. I think they went at it really hard. I think they've incorporated competition in a way that we haven't seen. I think they were lacking in the ability to figure out how to compete with one another, and they go at one another. The defense, you got to give them credit. They are so into things, and they're fired up, and they make a lot of noise, and they're not going to give them anything easily. And the offense just keeps coming because that's what that offense does. So I thought that's what I liked, taking away the sense of, we're going to work on getting better every day. We're going to do everything like it's in a game. Like today, it was all game situations. It was all 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 11 or whatever. A lot of 3rd down situations, and with that really competitive, with the defense, we're not going to give it to you. The offense, we got to make it. And they've gotten a lot of work for all the quarterbacks, all the wide receivers, the running backs. I thought got a chance to. We saw Stephen Carr do some things today that we haven't seen. I think they've gotten about as much as you could get out of this spring. I really do. This is a big change, and today was the day I guess we had 3 former offensive linemen here today, and the takeaway is, wow, those are wide splits, and wow, you got to be a really good athlete to do what they're at, and wow, I think they might have those guys, and that kind of thing. We see it every day. So, but somebody that just comes in once says, "Whoa, look at that! That's different."
Yeah.
And it really is different. So I thought they've made a transition that's a really big transition, about as smoothly as you could hope you could see it be made. So, and the fact that they compete every day. I mean, I know people say, "Oh, don't keep talking about Pete Carroll." It's not so much what Pete did in terms of offense or defense or scheming or whatever. The fact that they got better at practice almost every day because they competed so hard at practice. I think the ability to compete at practice in situations that are as game-like as possible is what you take away. That's where I think the major improvement has happened with this program. And I do think the coaches look like they're working together really well, and the coaching is happening, and they're guys are getting coached up immediately. I think the addition of the officials is just, we can't overstate how important having officials here every single day. You just don't see guys jumping off sides. You just don't see illegal procedures. You just don't. I mean, you don't see late hits. You don't see a lot of the things that we did see last year in practice and in games. And so a lot of positives. How does that carry over through the summer and the next fall? I mean, there's no way to absolutely predict, but you can only do what you can do when you get a chance to do it. And they're getting a chance to do it now, and they're doing it now. That's all. That's all we can. That's all we can tell you in terms of. This doesn't translate into, well, they're going to win this many games, or they're. Nah, we're not going there. We're just telling you what we see day to day to day.
See, not many negative things from you, which I think makes some jaded USC fans a little skeptical about your report. Anything negative and things that USC could have improved on but didn't this spring?
I think you can't control injuries, so I thought they incorporated. It would be easy to say, oh, they backed off with the secondary or whatever. They really didn't. Talanoa they could have backed off. They didn't.
Yeah.
Now he's got his arm in a sling, and he'll, hopefully be back, by July. But the other two guys in the yellow jerseys, Greg Johnson and Isaiah Polamalu, they didn't have them on today. I don't know if that's just because they weren't quite in full pads, or they're finished with the yellow jersey phase. But they did a. I thought they really had a good spring. I mean, I'm pretty pleased. I know we tend to maybe be critical about maybe the weight program or the nutrition program, or they don't have enough people, enough emphasis, or people are leaving and all of that. But it does look like, from talking to the players, that they've gotten to the right weights. The guys that needed to add, did. The guys that needed to lose did. A lot of that is you credit the players. I mean, the players themselves look like they know what happened last fall. They know what 5-7 looks like for a team with the kind of talent USC had. And you get the sense that they just don't want to go there. And a lot of this is driven, I think, by the players. And so that makes you have a kind of a good feeling. I just think they're in such a different place than they were a year ago. It's hard to go negative about them just because, people who were upset with Clay's not that much of a daily factor in terms of what you're seeing on the field and what you're seeing with the coaches and the players. He's, in a different place, but he's obviously turned this over to somebody like Graham Harrell, who's just taken it and inspires confidence every time you watch him do what he does or hear what he's talking about. Clancy seems a little bit like he's kind of a different guy and much more involved with the talked about today. They played with juice. They're it's not so much a mind game. It doesn't seem like now. It's more of an effort and competitiveness and all that. So I am a little hard pressed to I think the negatives are more. Do you have are you thin at some positions where you don't have any control? The offensive linemen, we don't get to know for absolute where they are until you play somebody else. And the same way a little bit with the defensive linemen. You can say they look like they're in better shape. They look like they're athletic enough to do what they're being asked to do. They're being, both of them a little more sound and a little more limited and a little more asked to do what you think they should be able to do. But that's when, to go back to Pete, you didn't know until that first snap or that second snap or that third snap of the first game where you were, exactly where you were. Where do your guys end up and how do they look compared to that other team? And I don't think we're going to know. I think we're going to, have a sense of they're moving in the right direction. Till you see that, first couple of games, then you'll know.
Yep. Alrighty, that's going to wrap it up for practice number 14 and Dan's last practice of spring. I'm Keely Eure for Dan Weber.
Do we have a shout out?
Oh, Dan wants to make a shout out.
No, I'll let you, for our guys in Seattle.
We have some fellow faithful watchers in Seattle, so thank you for watching. But for Dan Weber, I'm Keely Eure. For more, check out uscfootball.com.